Welcome back to Equal Time Soccer. I'm Mark Pravratsky, and today we have the first signing for the new W League team, Rochester FC. She was a first-year standout at Nebraska-Omaha. She is a graduate of Rochester. This is the one thing I was going to ask you before, how to say Lord. Is it Lords or is it more fancy than that?
Lured.
This from that high school. Lindsey Birch, welcome.
Nice to be here.
Awesome. So, Lindsey, we're in preseason. As you know, you were announced early for the team, which is something I'll ask you about. But of course, we're starting to see all these teams. Rochester FC has been a great team to follow because they've been posting a lot. I watched player interviews like on YouTube, which is really cool because it makes it so much easier for fans to follow the team. So I ask you first off, how'd you end up getting connected? Obviously you're from Rochester, but tell us how you became a part of the first year as the first signing for Rochester FC.
So way back when they announced that they were going to be joining the USL League for the summer, I had interest in joining the team, and I reached out to the club and reached out on how, I wanted to play on the team for the summer. And then me and the coaches, we just kind of talked, and then they offered me a spot on the team, and then that's how I got on the team.
Right on. So you went to them. So they probably feel lucky in terms of how many. There's obviously plenty of players from Rochester, but I don't know. To be honest, I follow Minnesotans playing D1. I don't know how many other D1 players there are from Rochester. So, yeah, so did you know the coaches? It's not the biggest soccer community in the world. Like, how much did you know of the coaches and the people involved in the team before that?
So I actually didn't know the coaches. I didn't know people involved in the team because I played up in the cities for Minnesota Thunder Academy. So I didn't really know much about the Rochester soccer. Just when I saw that they were going to have a USL team locally, wanted to try to play at that level because it's the highest inside the state for your summer.
Yeah.
And, it's nice to stay local and play.
Yeah, I'll mention this later, but Rochester is exploding with summer league soccer teams. The per capita is it might be the most in terms of cities in Minnesota with those teams. But you mentioned having to go up to the cities. I know last summer I saw in your player interview with Rochester FC that you played for Manitou last year in the WPSL, which is a drive. Rochester isn't super rural, but it is not next door to White Bear Lake. So talk about, you could have even picked, like a southern, there could have been a southern suburb team, but talk about having to deal with that, but what you got out of playing at that higher level with a lot of other, D1 and high level players.
So I've been traveling up to the city since I've been a U12 player. So I'm used to the drive. It's nothing really. It's just an everyday thing. But over the summer, I really liked the coach last summer, and he really helped get me ready for my first steps as a D1 college player, and really helping me with my decision making, speed of play, getting me ready for that next level.
Yeah, Eddie Burrow, right? Is that his name? Yeah.
Yeah, Eddie.
Yeah. So talk about in that league. Obviously, we'll talk about this later. You said you played for the Thunder growing up, which I know from ECNL and in club days. So then you're playing obviously a lot of your old teammates, right, in WPSL. So is that kind of fun?
Yeah.
Was that? And maybe some of them also in college. I don't know, but how was that playing them in the summer match against Thunder?
It was really fun playing against them. There was a lot of MTA girls that I had grown up playing against or had on my team that were on both the MTA and the Salvo teams.
Yeah.
So it was kind of odd playing against them and not playing with them, but it was fun playing against players that you've grown up with. And even at college, I got to play against people that were previous MTA players. And it was just kind of cool to play against people that you know.
Yeah. Well, and those are really there's a bigger gap in the top and bottom in that league in terms of Salvo and MTA, and some of the others are really, really stacked. And so watching some of those games can be really fun, even for a summer league where, you're just coming together for a few weeks. I watched a couple Salvo games at MTA, and I went to a Manitou game last year, and it's awesome. So, yeah, but this year you'll be a little bit closer to home. You'll save on the gas.
Yeah.
When are you going to listen to podcasts, Lindsey, now without,
Actually most of the times driving up to the cities, it was always doing homework for Lured. I always
Well,
had
yeah.
schoolwork to do. So, I didn't really actually listen to things going up to the
So
cities.
shout out to the parents who are,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, my mom drove me up to the cities every single day for
Wow.
whether it was practice or lift or extra fitness, like she was always driving me up there.
What's your mom's name?
Jenny.
Jenny? Good work. You did that. Yeah. Well, then, I mean, that's what I was picturing. Well, it makes it a lot easier when Jenny's doing the driving, and yeah, that's why you ended up, staying a good student, obviously.
Yeah.
Talk about, so you were playing WPSL last year, but yeah, you mentioned just being aware of the W League returning last year. Obviously, your closest rival this year will be Minnesota Aurora, and they got a lot of attention, and rightly so. There'd be, so I'm just wondering how much you saw about the league or how much you knew about the different teams or Aurora, like the teams you had faced before you joined.
So I didn't really know about like how many of the other teams were. I just knew that, Aurora is really good. So they're gonna definitely give us a run for our money, but we're gonna, try to go out, play as best as we can against them. I think they're like our second game or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw Aurora and I had followed them last year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that just kind of got my interest in the USL League and wanted to play at that top level for the summer.
Yeah, well, and who doesn't want to play in front of all those fans? And I should say, Green Bay is also a team you'll play that they play in a minor league baseball stadium. But it's just really well set up. It's the craziest video board. I don't know if you must play away at Green Bay. They have a video board that runs the entire length of the side of the field because it's an outfield in baseball. And so, but it's huge and it's like 10 feet tall and it runs 40 yards. So it's kind of, I wonder what it's like to play on the field, but you'll encounter some cool atmospheres. I'm wondering how it'll compare to, because you play in a really amazing college soccer stadium. On the coast, there's maybe a few more of those, but like really there aren't so many really nice that have a few thousand seats. And so talk about playing there and just maybe, like, I'm sure you must have had some attendance there that would prepare you for some big game atmospheres.
Yeah. So our first exhibition game against Nebraska, it was really cool because that was my first time putting on the Maverick jersey, going out on the field for game day, and the stands were just packed because it was a Nebraska rivalry.
Yeah.
And it was just such an amazing experience. And then when it was the Summit Championship game against Oral Roberts, the stands were packed. We had a great student section, and it was just an amazing atmosphere to play in. And it really helped like motivate us, like even more so to be like, okay, we have to go out and win. We can't lose in front of all of our fans. Like, we just want everyone to come and celebrate with us. Like, it was so cool watching like all the students just storm the field after we won, and it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that for sure. I want one more question or a couple things about just the summer league atmosphere. So I mentioned this when we talked maybe before we started, but Rochester now this summer will have a WPSL team and a USL W League team, and then on the men's side they'll have an NPSL team and a USL2 team, which is like your partner team on the men's side. So many teams, which is great for fans who just want to catch a random game. I'm wondering for you too. I mean, obviously, I don't think all four teams can be filled with just players from Rochester. That might be a challenge, but so I'm wondering but I don't know a lot about Rochester soccer. So I'm curious for your insight as, how you'll be able to fill your team with a lot of local folks. And then how much do you expect to see, a mixture of some recruiting of players from like out of state or from the Metro to fill out the roster?
I know right now we have only like a few local girls on the team. We have a good amount that are from some other school. I can't remember what it is right now, but they're from some out-of-state school. And then
like Northern Iowa, and then St. Mary's, which is D2 in Minnesota, and I think Western Illinois. So, it's like,
and then like we have some of the other Summit schools like Western Illinois and St. Thomas. So
yeah,
definitely not all of Rochester, just because we need to get more people.
Yeah, well, it'll be exciting to see, and that's obviously the Summit League is one that we cover a lot, obviously on Equal Time, because it is the most Minnesotan league by numbers by a lot, because it's like St. Thomas and NDSU I think are almost all Minnesotan, and then all the teams have some representation. Although you are the only Minnesotan on Omaha, so
yes.
everyone else is from the plains or Texas or somewhere else. So yeah, I'm curious for you. Did you attend? It's kind of an interesting thing this time of year too, because there's all these open tryouts. We're kind of through it now a bit, but I know Rochester held one, and it was in December, so I didn't know if maybe you were home. Is that something you attended, or did what did you, or did you know people who are going to go try out? What did you hear about that process?
So I was home over the Christmas break, and they had asked me, they're like, you're on the team already, but, can you still come to the tryouts?
Mhm.
So I went to the December tryouts, and I didn't go to the ones in February because, of course,
Mhm.
I was at school.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was there, and I knew some people there. But yeah, there was a lot of people I didn't really know, but
Mhm.
some people I knew were there.
Yeah. Well, and signings are trickling out too, and obviously from the other Rochester team as well. So shout out to Rochester United, because there are it's just nice for us. It gives us stuff to talk about, and we get to get excited for the summer. And by the way, I just saw an article today where this is the 8th snowiest winter Minnesota's had. I don't know what Omaha is like right now, Lindsey, but we can daydream about some green soccer fields for sure right now.
Yeah, Omaha's just really cold and windy right
Yeah,
now.
the drifts. You gotta watch out for those drifts. Yeah, don't get into the open road in Omaha.
Yeah, like, it's weird, we have no snow right now. Like, it's just cold and windy.
Just don't rub it in. No, that's where it's good. We need you training for the summer, so that's good. Are you guys training outside then, or are you in a bubble?
So we don't actually have a dome, so,
Oh yeah.
um, we've been training outside when we can, but, like, back when we actually first started training after break, we had to drive over to Gretna, which is, like, 30 minutes away from
Hmm,
Omaha, and
interesting.
so we practiced in, like, this big shed, I'll call it,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
had a big turf field in it, and
Yeah.
it was at least better than being outside.
Yeah.
But then we've been outside lately, and the other day we actually had to shovel off our field because we got like 1 to 2 inches of snow, and
Nice.
we were just out there for like an hour and a half shoveling this field.
Some of your more southern teammates might have been a little more jarred by that. Yeah.
Yeah, some of my teammates, they were so excited because they had never shoveled snow before, so they were having a blast though with
Hey,
it.
when it's only an inch or two, it's just fun. Yeah, it's not a chore. It's novel.
Yeah.
I get that. Well, I'm going to take a quick break to read an ad from our sponsor, Pentz Homes. This show is brought to you by Pentz Homes. Whether you're buying or selling or looking to do some projects in your current home, Nate and Lydia can help you find what you need. Need financing for a basement remodel, looking to add a second bath, or even a workspace now that you're working from home? Pentz Homes and their preferred lender, Angie Shearer, with Luminate Financing, can help find the right financing tool for you. Go to pentzhomes.com to learn more, or find them on social media at Pentz Homes. So we already kind of brushed on this in talking about your path to getting where you are now, but something that players deal with, even like, I used to live in Duluth, and the players there deal with that. They think, oh, do I need to go play in a metro league? Obviously you at a certain point made the choice like to take the opportunity with Minnesota Thunder Academy, which pretty tough to turn down, because it's what that means, and what type of talent comes through there. So talk about the challenge of that. We talked about your mom Jeannie being the MVP of it, doing all the driving so you could do your homework, but talk about just maybe even having to make the decision when you're little. Do you even think of it, or you're just so pumped you're like, cool, yes, I want to go play?
Well, so I had trained with MTA for 2 years before I actually decided to join the team.
Okay.
Um, but like it was a really big decision that I had to make because before I joined MTA, I was really into doing like swimming and dance.
Yeah.
And I really had to decide, okay, if I go up to the cities, I'm gonna have to give up all of that and I'm gonna have less free time.
Hmm.
But I really decided that I really wanted more out of soccer, and I had to go up to the cities to get more out of it and reach my goals in soccer. So
Yeah.
from the young age, I had to make that big decision and take
Yeah.
the leap. And, I'm glad I did. And I don't regret doing it.
Yeah, I am curious. Well, because we talk about this with every player, so it's kind of the same challenge for almost anyone, because no one says, "Oh, it's easy to make a college choice when you're 15." Like that's just it's a weird thing, but you all go through it, and then like you said, you're happy with where you are. I'm curious, just in like when you first started thinking about recruiting when you're 15 or 14, and of course you don't know what college is like because you're in ninth grade. So why do you know what college is like or what you want? I'm just curious for you, because you're in the middle of your freshman year. Like, can you even think back to like how you were imagining how to make your college choice and like what the school would be like and how different or the same it is of what you were able to imagine? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I remember my freshman year, like that's like when I really started to like really dive in and looking at all the colleges. And
Mhm.
I was talking to coaches, and then the NCAA changed the rules
Yeah.
so that you couldn't talk to them till June 15th going into your junior year.
Yeah.
So I remember that was like a really hard thing because I had all these like relationships started with coaches, and then all of a sudden I couldn't talk to them at all. So it was like everything was just put on the back burner for a while.
Yeah.
But then come June 15th, like it was great to be able to start talking to coaches again.
Mhm.
And then, I committed to Omaha my junior year. And yeah, I don't regret it. Like it's, what I thought that I was committing to.
Mhm.
And I don't regret it at all.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I suppose that break gave you a bit of time where like forced perspective, right? Because you have no choice but I guess to think through it. And I'm sure, I mean, you can, it's like not even about like naming a coach or something, but like, did any coaches try and sneak? Because it would be hard if they'd already texted you or already sent you letters. Were there people who are like, did send you an email, and like, I don't
No,
know.
no, no one was sneaking the emails in.
I mean, it's just because that would be so much harder than if it was just never allowed. But if you had already talked, you're like, look, some other coach is probably doing this, or yeah, that's an interesting time in the transition you went through. Talk about playing. You still played high school. I mean, which some people, to be honest, now when they do ECNL or like high level academy commitment, especially with the driving, it may be too much. But obviously, you played a lot in high school. You were all state a couple times, and I'm wondering, like, for you, what are your favorite memories? You're close enough that the glory days are still pretty close. So I'm wondering what your favorite memories are when you think back to high school soccer.
Every single year, every single season with high school really had its own little like, core memory for them.
Mhm.
I know my freshman year, I was the only freshman. There was no sophomores on the team, so
Oh,
it was just me and all the juniors and seniors. So like there was a lot of things that the upperclassmen, like they just treated me just like I was one of them, and it
yeah,
was really fun. And then as a freshman, I got to go to state my freshman year.
yeah.
Um, so that was really cool. And then my sophomore year, we went to state again, but we had to like introduce some new players.
Mhm.
And then my junior year, that was COVID, so that had a ton of adventures with it
Yeah.
because our home stadium was RCTC, so we couldn't really play on that because they left the dome up. So it just
Oh,
they
wow.
left the dome up, so we had to go and play on grass fields that were nearby. And I
Interesting.
remember one of our games, our athletic director, he had to go out and shovel every single line on the field because it
Yeah,
just snowed so much, and he was trying
yeah,
to make our field playable.
yeah, yeah.
Then my senior year, like it was a really great year, like just to be a big leader for all the younger kids, because
Mhm.
like especially my junior and senior year, like we had a ton of underclassmen, and
Mhm.
really I needed to like help guide them and help introduce them to the varsity level. And it was just really fun to just go through all the different stages of the high school soccer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it sounds like you definitely took it all in. I'm wondering because Rochester's a unique town in terms of like high school sports because the three public high schools are big. I mean, they're all like Mayo and John Marshall and Century are big, and you're a very successful school, but private and like smaller. So I'm just wondering like who's your obviously maybe you played them some in non-conference, but who was your rival or who did you want to beat the most?
Well, so going back to like the we're small and everyone else is a big school, like
Mhm.
pretty much it got to the point where everyone that was in high school was on varsity because we
Yeah.
really did not have a lot of people. But
Yeah.
like our biggest rival was definitely Cotter. Um,
Okay.
like their like main like core of their team, like that would always just like come at us and score a ton of their goals. Like they were all my grades, so they had
Uh-huh.
played against each other for a long time.
What is that? Where is that?
Winona Cotter. It's over
Oh, okay.
in Winona.
Southern Minnesota is catching my Minnesota blind spots. That's yeah. Well, did you ever play the big Rochester schools when you were there?
No, we only played Century in little preseason scrimmages,
Yeah,
but we never actually played a game against any of them.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, they're huge. I mean, that's I was looking it up because I was like, yeah, I wonder. And talk about you. I mean, so you end up at Omaha, and we dance around it, but you had a great success there. I mean, so you first of all you play a lot. I mean, which is incredible. So I'm wondering for you. I mean, how much did you expect to play? How much were you promised, or how much was that a conversation, or were you just going to start your journey and that was kind of up in the open?
I kind of just went in and, I knew, okay, the coach will play me, however he sees fit. And I just need to accept my role on the team and just really be a team player and accept whatever role that I was given. Because I came in and there's two upperclassmen center backs on the team.
Yeah.
And I'm a center back, so I really had to jump into a new role this year and play outside back.
Mm-hmm.
So just every minute I got on the field, I just had to go out and work as hard as I could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and you got to play a lot. I mean, it is rare. It's rare for freshmen to get to play so much, and also it happened to be in the year where Omaha was kind of taking a little step up. I mean, among early season struggles, I mean, part of that. I mean, you mentioned playing Nebraska, Omaha. So I mean, for people who don't follow, the Summit League is not. It's a mid-major type league. And so in the early season, a lot of the teams will play really challenging D1 opponents as like a way to first, because the D1 teams want the bigger teams, maybe want a lead up to playing in the Big Ten, right? But you guys played a ton of big schools. You played Nebraska, you played like Colorado, you played Oklahoma State. So like the beginning of your college process was probably pretty intense, right? So like it wasn't all wins, but you guys were very competitive.
Yeah. So my coach, he really likes to challenge us inside of like our non-conference games so
Yeah.
that, we're ready to go for the conference.
Yeah, it was, and I mean, obviously maybe paid off later in the year. I mean, so the middle of the Summit League too, just to give people a context, I mean, is really difficult. I mean, so at the top, you usually have South Dakota State who's doing well, you have Denver who's doing well, and then from there it really kind of mixes up, but those two teams are always good. In the middle, it's so difficult, and there were a lot of teams. It was an expanded tournament this year. Towards the end of the season, you must have been kind of in a clinching situation because you won 3 and drew 1 of your last 4 to get a pretty good seed, but like it was all up in the air. So I'm just curious if what you remember about the pressure of that being like being in the pressure to make the tournament and win games or not go there.
Yeah, so we got to a point where we're like, okay, we really need to, start getting some wins because we really need to make sure that we make it to the conference tournament. And like we had some injuries that we had to mess around with and, try to get everything back inside of how are we going to go out with our lineups? How are we going to deal with our injured players? But then, we really just locked in and knew that we needed to get some wins. And then we started getting some goals early, and that was really good for us.
Mm-hmm.
I even played some forward for a little bit of that little spurt.
Uh-huh.
But it was just really the thing of, everyone has to go wherever the coach wants and just go out and execute the game plan.
Yeah. Were you playing like on the wing, or you were just like they brought you in at striker to spell somebody, or what was that? Say about that.
I was playing some center forward,
Yeah.
and I even got a goal.
I know. Yeah, you scored.
Yeah, that was really exciting because my first college goal, being a center back who's playing forward, but yeah, just had to go out, help my team, however, and at the end of the day, we all worked hard and it paid off to get some wins and make it to the tournament.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize, I just assumed, because I knew you probably subbed in around a lot on defense and maybe on midfield. So I just assumed, the goal just came from some moment of that. I didn't assume it was that you were playing forward. So yeah, watch out maybe next year. But that's amazing to get the feeling of scoring a goal. Because I'm sure, yeah, if you haven't scored that many overall, you remember them.
Yeah, that was my one and only college goal this past season. So
yeah, right on. Well, and so the tournament it was really fun. So, I mean, once it gets to like the Summit tournament, I was really following it and I watched as much of it as I could. And it was very fun. I mean, there were upsets. I mean, if people would not have picked, quite frankly, if you would ask people to bet, they would have said, well, it's going to be Omaha beating Oral Roberts. You beat North Dakota, which is a great win anyway. They're an upstart team this year, took a step up 1-0 in the quarterfinals. And then you beat South Dakota State, which is huge. That must have been, it's a huge win. It is an upset, even though you were, I guess, like maybe the 3 seed, but that is an upset for sure. They're a team that makes the tournament a lot. What did it mean to your team to win that game?
So we were so excited. Like we were so pumped when we scored. We're like, okay, we need to lock in, really, okay, we have a chance at winning this.
Mhm.
So then we just really locked in and knew that we couldn't make really many mistakes and just had to go out and play for the whole 90 minutes.
Yeah, they must. Well, I can imagine. I mean, Maya Hansen and all the people they have who are just like relentless, and and for you, I mean, were you playing defense or midfield in that game?
So I was playing defense. I was playing outside back inside that game.
Because
And
they really. Well, I ask because they pressure a lot. I mean, eventually they kind of tire out because you cannot pressure the way you can't do that all the time. But they are pretty aggressive, as I remember, in terms of like putting it on you as a defender too to play it
yeah,
out, right?
yes. Yeah, they were. But it was just like a lot of us were just like, "Oh my gosh, we just beat SDSU. Like this
Mhm.
is crazy." And then when we heard that Oral Roberts upset Denver, we're like, "Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, we have homes. We have like, home we're the home team now. We don't have to
yeah,
go out to Denver. Like this is crazy."
yeah.
And we were just so pumped.
Well, it's a big deal. I mean, it's I realized this interviewing someone from I don't remember one of the Summit League teams, but it's also you're going to Denver and like none of us are in altitude. None of you in the Summit League are in any altitude. And then you fly in. It's like a huge advantage. Aside from that, they're good. Like it's so
Yeah.
they are it's that would be really difficult, especially although I mean and difficult maybe for them to come play in Omaha as well. So yeah, you make it in, and then you beat Oral Roberts on PKs, right? That must have been so.
Yeah.
I didn't look, to be honest. I'm assuming as a freshman, you didn't take a PK. I should have looked that up.
No,
Were you
I did
getting
not take a PK.
Were you on the field? Like, were you getting nervous? Were you on the field during PKs?
So I was not one of our 10 PK takers.
Yeah.
So I was on the sideline with my teammates, and we were just like we were just like all
Yeah.
next to each other, like, okay, come
Mhm.
on, we got this, we got this. And then like when we realized, okay, we have to make it or they have to miss, I don't remember. Then like we all just stormed
Yeah.
the field. We're like, this
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah. Well, because have you been in a PK shootout before?
I've been in other PK shootouts, just not at college.
Yeah.
But I'd say that
Have you taken them?
I've taken PKs like for my high school team. I took PKs for our team,
Mhm.
but like the last PK shootout I was in was like a long time ago, so
Mhm.
I really don't remember if I was or not.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I imagine if you're a defender who's on the field, and especially maybe a freshman, it doesn't matter, where it's
Yeah,
like, after 5, then it's like, shit, it could come to any, it could
yeah,
come to me. Yeah.
yeah. Like we were so excited because our goalie, like she saved a couple of the PKs, and we were just going crazy when she just kept saving them.
Uh-huh. Awesome. Well, and so you won. I mean, it's a big deal. It's the first time Omaha went to the national tournament, right? So
Yeah,
that's a really big deal. It's a big deal, obviously, for recruiting, big deal for all you in terms of just your belief, right? That's why I asked you about you beating South Dakota State, because it's like you're the same players the day before that and after, but like the confidence you get is very real. And that must make a difference in knowing like we took this step and, next year it could be another step.
yeah. That's our goal again. Is we want to go and try to make it to the NCAA tournament again.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool honestly cool for the Summit League to have 2 teams in the tournament too. That was the thing about the upset is South Dakota State, still made it. And maybe Denver did as well. I hope I'm not, they may as well. I might be discounting them, but that's a cool thing for the teams around here to be represented like that. Obviously it didn't go as planned in the tournament. It's tough. Any team you get drawn on in the tournament is a huge step up. I mean, and so in the end of the day, I'm sure the biggest benefit was just that you made the journey and made it there. I'm wondering for you guys, because I don't care about asking about Notre Dame. Who cares about them? Paige Peltier, shout out to the Minnesota Notre Dame. But Lindsey, do you remember like watching the selection, or do you remember how you found out? Were you guys like hanging out and find out where you got to go?
So we were all at a restaurant that's near campus. Like we had a big little watch party for it. And when we saw, like we kind of figured that we were going to be against the number 1 seed.
Yeah,
But
right.
when we saw Notre Dame, we're like, okay, so it's going to be a challenge,
Yeah,
but we're just, we're gonna go and we're gonna soak up the experience and, try to play as good as we can. Like,
Mhm.
we went out there and, we had a game plan and we were trying to go out and win.
Mhm.
But when they scored 3 goals within the first 10 minutes,
Yeah.
made the rest of the game kind of long, but then
Yeah.
we were able to hold them off until like the last 10 or 8 minutes. So,
Games games get worse than that, to be blunt. In the NCAA
yeah.
tournament, teams lose bigger than, I mean, I have no idea what the gap in budget is between the Notre Dame athletics and and just the soccer teams in general, but it's significant. I would imagine. How was it cool just to get to go to Notre Dame? I'm you went
Yeah.
to a Catholic high school. I mean, you're going to Notre Dame.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. Like, it was really cold, so we had gone and we had just walked around the campus the day before, and
Yeah.
then, when we actually got there to play the game, it was kinda snowing when we walked out, so there was
Right.
snow on the field, and, it was just really cold. They had little space heaters for the benches,
Oh,
but,
nice.
that's just soaking up the experience, and, I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not. I mean, is there something too? I mean, you just have to take something away from losses to move forward. To try to grow anyway. But I mean, is there something of like knowing what you have to get to? I mean, it's not as if you don't play. We said it. You play big teams. I mean, like you played
Mhm.
Colorado. You played really quality high level teams. But did it give you something in terms of the benchmark being like me as, and especially both for the team and as you're like, okay, I guess if we're going to be better, I have to be this much better at everything,
Yeah.
or at
Like,
whatever. Yeah.
it really gave us an idea of like, okay, so here's what the teams are that are inside the NCAA tournament are like, and
Mhm.
you know, we're gonna set that as our standard. Like, if we want to go out and win a game next year at the
Yeah.
tournament, here these are the teams that we're gonna have to beat. So we, have to always go out, work hard, and yeah, all play together and just work as hard as we can.
Yeah. Well, and you're in how much different do you feel just from August, because you're still in your freshman year obviously, but the freshman season itself is done, but you're prepping for spring obviously, which for folks who don't follow college soccer as much, both D2 and D1 teams play like kind of a limited, like a half, kind of a third schedule. I think you have 6 or 7 games, something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
something like that.
a mix of like some higher level D1s and some other exhibitions. I'm curious, do you don't have any recruits incorporated in for this year, do you? For the who came in early or anything like that?
So we had one transfer come in and she's a sophomore, and
Mhm.
then we had one freshman come early.
Okay, cool.
And we only lost one senior, so
That's
we
yeah,
knew.
that's kind of what I was getting at is how you feel. So you're in spring, and obviously you have a lot more perspective having gone through your whole season. How much for confident, do you feel in you as a player, and then how much do you feel confident in the team coming back next year? Because that is exciting if you only lost one senior and you're going to get recruits this summer.
Yeah, I think like we have a really good like, setup. Like, everyone's back. We got two this spring and we're getting two more inside the fall.
Mhm.
So, it'll be really good because basically everyone's gonna be back and we all know how to play with each other.
Mhm.
So really just we're ready to go.
Right on. For you, do you live? And I'm sure, do you probably live with teammates, right? Do you guys? And how many of you live together?
So our dorms are kind of like an apartment.
Yeah.
So there's 4 bedrooms, a kitchen, a
Mhm.
living room, and then 2 bathrooms. So I live with three of my teammates.
Right on. We and same will it be the same thing next year. Do you move? Is there any like moving off campus or anything like that? You guys all kind of
Um,
stay as the teammates.
a lot of people are moving off campus next year. Kind of unsure exactly what I'm gonna do for next year, but
Mhm.
yeah.
Right on. Where I'm curious, so um for Omaha, I don't know who your biggest rival is in terms of like maybe obviously like playing Nebraska, you're like, yeah, like maybe you want to beat Nebraska more than anyone. I probably would if I were you. But in terms of like the Summit League teams maybe, or like other teams besides that, who do you most want to beat? You're only a year into it, but who did you most want to beat this year?
SDSU, definitely SDSU.
Uh-huh. Right
Yeah.
on. Well, yeah, so because they beat you 3-0 in the regular season, which I just say in context, so like then when it counted, you were able to take that 1-0. So you're 1-1. Not a bad record against the
Yeah.
Jackrabbits, Lindsey. Um,
Yeah.
what is your not in terms of who did you want to beat the most, but what was your favorite away trip? We talked about Notre Dame, so maybe not that because that'd just be cool to see the campus and stuff. But what was your favorite away trip this year in college?
Let's see. I'd say probably going out to Colorado. Like,
Yeah,
'cause we went out there earlier inside the season to go and play Northern Colorado and then Colorado Boulder.
yeah,
But that was just kind of fun because then we just got to spend a lot of time as a team together,
yeah.
and it was just a really cool experience.
Yeah, well, it's pretty, and a lot of your play you don't always travel that far because you like the summit stuff's all really close, and then I'm sure you probably mix it up like every couple of years, do a longer trip like to Florida or so, but it's like yeah, Colorado's pretty cool. I mean, if you're just going to like South Dakota and Minnesota, you're like, yeah, let's check out Boulder. That sounds cool.
Yeah,
Um,
and like we get to fly out there, so we don't need to sit on the
nice.
bus for a long time.
What's the longest bus ride? Where'd you bus
Um,
to South
well,
Dakota or North Dakota? No,
I don't know. We didn't go to North Dakota this year.
that's far. Grand Forks is far from you. Although maybe you just take, yeah, I don't know.
We went down to go play Lindenwood, and that was a really long drive.
In like Texas or something.
And then Oral Roberts, that one was really long.
That's in is that in Kansas or something?
Oklahoma.
Oh yeah. Is there
But
don't they have the big statue? Do they have a huge statue of Oral Roberts there?
I do not
I might
know.
be mixing up. I think they have like a 50-foot tall statue of the guy who I don't know. I think so, but yeah.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Yeah, that was our longest one. But if Denver had won, and like if we would have had to go out there, we would have had to drive out there. So that would have been
oh,
our longest one.
I suppose yeah. Well, Omaha is on the east part. That would be a solid what, maybe 8 or 10 or like
I don't know.
maybe more. Yeah,
A,
enough.
a long drive.
Enough. Yeah. After,
Yeah.
yeah. Although, yeah, I guess you just must dig into the homework. Because yeah, speaking of that, I'm sure you are a kinesiology major with like moving towards physical therapy, right?
Yes.
So is bus time a lot of homework, or is it also like you need to like just chill with teammates on the bus or nap?
Bus time has a lot of studying going in, like for all my tests. I
Mm,
always seem to have an anatomy test. Like I
yeah,
always seem to have one.
I bet.
But yeah, a lot of homework on the bus.
Yeah. Do you have are there other teammates for similar with science and similar classes to you?
Yeah. So there's upperclassmen that I can go and ask, because
Cool.
they've had a lot of the teachers, and then
Mhm.
one of the other freshmen, she's on like almost the same path as me, so
Cool.
we have a lot of classes together.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, maybe even better to have someone who's older than to have a peer, to have someone who's yeah, who can help
Yeah.
you out. That's nice. Um, oh, and then, well, I wanted to ask, so, and does that mean, I mean, is the reason you're kind of into that path partly because you want to be involved in sports directly, or is it just that, physical therapy, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be soccer or sports.
Like I don't know exactly what like who I want to work with for PT, like
Mhm.
maybe older people or maybe younger children.
Mhm.
But I've been around it basically my whole life, because I used to go up to the Twin Cities Orthopedics and like I did my lifting and I did my agility and my sprinting there.
Oh, really?
So I was just kind of always around like the physical therapy stuff and that
Yeah.
kind of that kind of work. And
Well,
I've had a lot of people tell me that I'd be good at it. So yeah,
well,
going along with that track.
it pays to have those values when you're trying to better yourself as an athlete for sure because you clearly you want to at least have the intention and the mindset for it, which is great. It's awesome. Well, very very exciting to talk to you, Lindsey. I did want to ask one other thing I wanted to ask is because I put this US blanket up because women's world cup's coming up, so I'm getting pumped. But what's the favorite soccer game you've ever been to, or it could just be watched if it's like the World Cup final this year was sweet, but if I'm curious if there's a soccer game you've attended that you remember specifically.
I would say so when I was younger, I went over to England and like I did like this little camp thing through Wolverhampton
Uh-huh.
and we
It's
got to
cool.
go to a Manchester United game and a Wolverhampton game
Wow.
and it was just so cool to, be in England and being around those fans and everything. Like
Mhm.
I'd say that was the coolest game I've been to.
How old were you?
Um, how old was I? I think I was 12, maybe 13.
Wow. It must have been pretty overwhelming. Was it in Manchester and Wolverhampton?
So the camp was through Wolverhampton, um, but we also got like the tour of Manchester, got to go to a game, and it was cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. Amazing. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Is it something I mean, you've been playing at a high level too. I just wanted to ask, when people are playing at USLW, I mean, a lot of the players are at least considering soccer as a part of their future. Is that something that is that part of the reason you want to, keep playing in the summer and training hard, or are you wanting to keep that a possibility for yourself too, playing pro?
I'm just really gonna see like where soccer takes me and, just play it out day by day.
Right on. You got a couple years left. You got to get, I'd say, a pretty solid backup plan
Yes.
in kinesiology and physical therapy major. So
Yes.
that's going to work out fine. Well, pay attention to Rochester FC this summer, everybody. I have no doubt there's going to be some Minnesota Aurora fans who make that one of their away trips because it's a Sunday. I think Aurora plays at Rochester on a Sunday afternoon. So it should work out really well for some fans to go down. Maybe we'll get, I don't know, maybe it'll be a bus or something from the Ravon Tillette supporters, but very excited to follow you, Lindsey. It was a lot of fun talking about the Summit League from last year, and we wish you luck on this coming season.
Thank you.